This presentation is intended for individual taxpayers. It discusses the federal tax credits for residential energy efficiency that were expanded starting January 1st of 2023. It was developed by volunteers in early 2023 to get you familiar with this topic, and you should check with your home improvement and tax professionals for confirmation in your specific situation. And if you are such a professional and see a need for a correction or an update anywhere in here, please let us know. With that said, we'll get started. When you buy a new furnace or air conditioner or heat pump, it has to meet certain efficiency standards set by the U.S. Department of Energy. Also, when making additions or alterations to a residence, Virginia building codes might require that components such as walls, windows, and doors meet certain thermal insulation standards. The tax credits we're talking about here are trying to give taxpayers an incentive to install items that are more efficient than what is required by current codes and regulations. So, how much money are we talking about, and what do you have to do to get it? The credit is 30% for materials and for any labor you pay someone else for. So if you spend $100, you might qualify for $30. Spend $1,000, you might qualify for $300. Spend $2,000, you might qualify for $600, and so on. But there are different categories of improvements, and each has its own upper dollar limit, so you may not receive a full 30% for your expenses in each category. And these credits are what's called non-refundable, and later on we'll discuss what that means. So, what investments count? First, there's the building envelope of an existing residence. Those are the parts that can keep heat from leaking in or out, things like windows, doors, insulation, and air sealing, like caulk or foam or gaskets. Also new this year is a 30% credit for a professional home energy assessment, often called an energy audit. Another type of improvement is equipment for heating, air conditioning, and water heating. Also, if you need to upgrade your home's electrical system to handle these other upgrades, you can get a credit for that. Now, separately, there are also credits for solar panels and battery storage and geothermal heat pumps. But that's too much to go into here, and it's probably of interest to fewer people, so we're going to leave those for a different presentation. And in fact, if you're considering those kind of investments, it's best to reduce your heating and cooling energy demands first, and then size your solar panels, heat pumps, etc. So let's jump right into the categories of improvements. With the building envelope, first, there are exterior doors. To qualify, these have to be Energy Star rated, which means that EPA figures they are about 10 to 15% better insulated than what building codes require. Each year, you can get up to $250 per door for a maximum of $500. Here's a good time to mention that these are annual limits. You can qualify for up to these amounts every year. Before 2023, the limits were much smaller, and they were lifetime limits for each taxpayer. So if you were one of those people who used up your lifetime limit in past years, that's now reset. You can claim as much as everyone else from now on. The next item is windows. As many windows as you want, but once you spend $2,000, 30% of $2,000 is $600, and that is the annual limit for windows. Now, qualifying windows have to be even better than Energy Star, what's called Energy Star Most Efficient. EPA lists these qualifying models each year at the website shown here. Now, in Virginia in 2023, it looks like this most efficient rating does not improve how well the windows block sunlight from coming through in summer, but it does improve the insulation value versus the Energy Star rated models. Next, insulation. If you're going to add insulation to an attic or around a basement wall, or maybe put insulating panels under new exterior siding, or maybe you're using some expanding foam to fill some air gaps that otherwise let outside air in, you can spend up to $4,000 on those items, qualify for a 30% credit, which would be a credit of $1,200, which is the limit for insulation and air sealing. Air sealing is a new qualifying expense this year, as are energy audits. With an energy audit, a professional evaluates your home to suggest improvements you can make to save energy. An audit might cost from $100 to $500 depending on the level of detail they go into, and you can get back 30% up to a limit of $150. Now, the total of all the credits you earn from everything on this page cannot be more than $1,200 per year. Even if you spend $5,000 and 30% of that is $1,500, you are still limited to $1,200 of credits per year. And we'll repeat that again on some later slides. All right, now the second big category is called energy property. Air conditioners, furnaces and boilers, water heaters, and as mentioned at the beginning, certain electrical system upgrades if they are needed to power this equipment. The maximum credit is $600, and the key is that the particular model number must fall into what's called the highest efficiency tier, but it does not have to be what's called the advanced tier. In Virginia, a qualifying central air conditioner, for example, is going to be at least 11% more efficient than the minimum allowed 2023 model. Again, these credits are not trying to get people just to replace older systems. They're encouraging people to do more than the minimum required. There aren't many oil-fired furnaces or boilers around here anymore, so this slide omits the new rules for high-efficiency oil units that also have to be able to burn things like biodiesel and ethanol. On the previous slide about the building envelope, we mentioned that limit of $1,200 per year. That limit applies to everything on the previous slide, plus any equipment credits from this slide. So if you get a $1,200 credit from everything on that last slide, there's no room left for any energy property credits from this slide. Or let's say from this slide, you buy a new highest efficiency furnace or air conditioner, and you claim the maximum credit of $600. That's halfway to your $1,200 overall limit, so you only have room for another $600. So for new windows and doors you install the same year, you can only get another $600 for those because the combined limit for all of these is $1,200 per year. Now there's one last category that has its own separate limit. These are high efficiency heat pumps and high efficiency biomass or wood stoves and boilers. A heat pump is basically a reversible air conditioner. It pumps heat out of your house in the summer and it pumps heat into your house in the winter. Again, to qualify for the credit, the model you install has to be on the 2023 list of highest efficiency tier models. Currently, it looks like those heat pumps use roughly 10% less energy than the basic models that meet Department of Energy requirements. Equipment on this slide has its own separate credit limit of $2,000. So if you spend $6,700 on a qualifying heat pump or wood stove, 30% of that is $2,000, and $2,000 is the maximum credit for these items. And you can add this to any credits from the previous two slides for a total of up to $3,200 per year. A few notes at the bottom here. These are not business credits. They are for individual taxpayers, so they don't apply if you are a landlord for the property. If you're claiming more than 20% of your home as office or business space, you can only count the expenses that improved the non-business parts of the residence. Okay, so this next slide, we'll just pause here, let you read these over. These are examples of things that do not qualify for the tax credits. We'll link you here for about 10 or 15 seconds, and you can hit pause or skip ahead or come back to any of this material later. The last bullet on the previous slide mentioned energy audits. How can you find someone to perform an audit? This is new this year, and we've received some questions about it, so we'll go into some detail. A good place to start is the link shown here from Dominion Energy. They currently list about 23 companies, and if you narrow your search to the 22046 zip code, you get about 10 companies. A qualifying audit has to be a written report that meets some basic minimum requirements. Starting in 2024, the auditor will have to have been certified by a program approved by the Department of Energy. A link to these programs is shown here. Make sure your auditor shows you the certification and includes it in the report. One of the 4 qualifying certifications is a Home Energy Rater, RATER, and this last bullet has a URL for how to find someone with that certification. Okay, so how do you get these credits? So let's say in 2023, you put a new heat pump into service or move back into an existing home that you renovated. In early 2024, you'll file your tax return for 2023, and that's when you'll claim these credits. Now, some people will be making these qualifying improvements whether or not there's a tax credit. But if for you, the tax credits are going to be a deciding factor in whether you choose these higher efficiency models, let's first make sure you're going to be able to benefit from the credits. To do that, look at your tax returns from the last year or two. On your Form 1040, look at line 22. If that was more than 0, then you could have benefited from the residential energy credits. Line 22 is affected by a lot of things, mainly your income, your itemized or standard deductions, and common things like child tax credits, credits for childcare, education credits. So if any of the things above line 22 might change much for this current year, you should do a fresh estimate with assumptions for this year. If you estimate that line 22 is going to be close to or less than $1,200 or $3,200, you'll want to consider that and maybe spread your efficiency investments out over 2 or 3 years. Because you cannot earn credits in 1 year and carry them over into future years. Anything over this year's limits gets forfeited. Again, all this is a concern only if receiving the credits is going to be a deciding factor for you. Okay, almost wrapping up here. What forms will you need to file? First, keep your receipts and all manufacturers' labels and installer certifications that these purchases qualify. The IRS form will probably still be Form 5695, but these credits and calculations changed a lot in 2023, so the IRS will be doing a big update on this form by the end of 2023. You, or your tax software or professional preparer, will take the credit value that is calculated on Form 5695 and copy it to Schedule 3. And then Schedule 3 values will get copied onto Form 1040. And if there would otherwise have been money left over on line 22, these credits will lower the amount of tax you owe, or they will increase your refund. And a few last pointers. These updated credits and limits are for 2023 and beyond. Some of these credits used to be 10%. You cannot go back and change your old returns to now claim the 30% credit. You may have heard news stories about rebates up to $8,000 for a heat pump or $1,600 for weatherizing your home or over $800 for an induction cooktop, etc. So 3 comments. First, the rules for those programs have not been released yet. They'll be administered through the states, and Virginia has to get its plans approved by the feds first. And like many current Virginia energy programs, it will likely involve using approved contractors. Second, eligibility will be income limited, so it depends on your household income, the number of people in your household, and where you live. We count as being in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Third, and maybe most importantly, Virginia will probably get about $190 million. So if those programs gave $6,000 to each household, that would only cover about 1% of the single-family detached houses and townhomes in the state. And that may be spread over the next 8 years or so. So it may be tough to qualify for and get chosen for those bigger rebates, whereas the tax credits in this presentation are much easier to qualify for every year. So if you're wondering whether to delay your upgrades and chase some of these limited programs, here's a few last guidelines. First, these are the only programs we're discussing today that are usable by owners of multifamily buildings. So if that's you, focus on these when they become available. Second, one of these new programs gives 50 to 100% rebates up to various limits for purchases like heat pumps, electric stoves, insulation, etc. When its rules come out, the income limits might be lower than what is shown here under the column labeled 150% of area median income, but they definitely won't be any higher, except for some inflation indexing. So some households may be able to rule themselves out of that program right away. Third, the other program, called the Homes Program, may offer at least 50% rebates, apparently regardless of income, up to a $2,000 to $4,000 rebate. Lower income households will qualify for more. The tricky part is that a contractor will have to model or measure the resulting reduction in energy use, so that's going to add some labor costs. And that may drive these rebates to the really drafty and older homes that can justify a lot of upgrades. Finally, a taxpayer can receive rebates under only one of these programs, the HEEHR program or the Home Program, but not both. So again, no definitive advice, just a little more guidance. Finally, here are links to some online resources, all still valid as of August of 2023. We hope you found this useful, and please reach out to the Falls Church Climate Action Network with any questions or corrections and suggestions for other topics to cover.